Okay, approval of minutes, June 12th, 2001.
Should read July 12th.
I thought so. Sorry, I apologize.
Hang on.
I had a couple of...
something on well, let's see which ones.
July 12th, 2001. Okay.
I have something on July 12th also.
Alrighty.
Okay, I have on page 1, under continued items, the sign review for Grandmare's Inn. It should be noted that I abstained from this item, so it carried 3-0.
Okay.
On page 3, the first line, Commissioner Weaver stated he wanted on the next agenda an item stating that due to changes, the Commission of Reorganization of the Plan Commission is needed. I requested that that be the first item on the agenda after the approval of minutes, and I want to have that happen.
You want me to move this up here?
Yes.
Sure.
Oh, and along with that, these other items, since these are sort of in-house things, it'd be nice
Should be at the end.
to be at the end
That's
rather
what I
than the beginning.
thought as well, yeah.
On page 5, that first large paragraph, the last sentence, Mr. Weaver stated he is against the variance to build a new garage, but was happy to see the deck returning back to original. What I did is I pointed out that when approval was given 6 years ago to demolish the old existing garage, the owner at that time was advised that if somebody wanted to come along and build a new garage, they would have to conform to all of the setbacks and so forth. So the previous owner was advised of that very, very strongly. Yeah, I happened to be on the commission at that time. And then the last page, Commissioner Weaver stated he would like all unpermitted signs removed on the Sierra Spa building. I believe that was Commissioner Oberholzer's item. I was concerned with the signs on the consignments, unlimited, or whatever that, over at the parking lot building.
Yeah, did that show up here?
No, it's not on there. It's consignments.
That should say Sierra. That should say the consignment store.
The little shop that used to be Stray Cuts next to the parsonage, that one, and the
Store?
whatever it is now, and
You mean the new antique store?
whatever it is.
Rose, or
Well, there's so many signs on it, I can't tell what
The
it is.
bookstore is actually next to the parsonage. And then
he's referring to the,
that's the one he means, though.
is that country?
But he brought all 3 of those up, so.
And the shop on the corner of York and Commercial that used to be,
Lalu?
no,
Is that what it is now?
it's Serendipity.
Charlotte's Place.
It used to be Charlotte's.
Oh,
Now it's with all those banners and things
Oh,
that
they
are
were
out
up in
there.
the other building on Lower Commercial, yeah.
But as much,
Spirit House?
it's actually a visual hazard when you're driving up that street.
The flag things? they have
Flapping
going
all
on
over
there.
the place. Yeah. So that's all I had on that.
And I have a couple of things. On page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs down, motion by Weaver, recommend the City Council consider a civil penalty ordinance. I think part of the motion was to pass that recommendation on to the City Council. I wouldn't expect that they would hear about it any other way. And as I understand, there was a big discussion of this the other night, and I don't think anybody let the City Council know of our recommendation. I think it would have been a good night to begin discussion of a civil penalty ordinance.
They had these minutes in their packet.
Yeah.
Come on, you're going to ask them to weed through 5? They didn't know that there was...
I think
I don't
Jim
know.
explained it or something, was explaining it, I don't know.
As I understand it, nobody passed our recommendation on, well, I'm sure they had these minutes, but they were having a discussion of this whole after-the-fact demolition ordinance, and if we need to write an official letter every time we want to recommend something to the city council, or if we need to be there to make the recommendation, Paul, I think you just need to let us know. And I'd be happy to show up and give our recommendation, but our recommendation was not raised that night. And I know I talked to 2 city council members who, had no idea that we had made that recommendation.
Couldn't recommendations go as a separate piece of minutes to them? I mean, just, it goes in the minutes still, but in addition to that, if we do make any, because, it is a practical matter for them. We don't expect them necessarily to read through it all and pick out what's pertinent to that meeting.
No, it could. It just seemed such a small town. They were going to discuss it at the following meeting. It seems like staff could have, pass on that recommendation.
We will pass on the recommendation. It's as you saw last time, the city attorney was, mentioned that a certain system has to be set up. So we can put that on the city council agenda, and everybody can be prepared to discuss it.
Okay.
On that, Lori, in that vein, all we were doing with that whole proposed ordinance was giving our recommendations to the city council. We were reviewing what was prepared, and that was one of our recommendations, was that
all your
they consider
recommendations
that.
were in their packet.
So,
Well, I think since this was above and beyond what they got in the little ordinance, I think we ought to send them a letter, and maybe that should be our policy whenever we have a special recommendation, which doesn't happen that often. We ought to just put it in a letter.
that was just the first reading the other night, so maybe we should advise them so that they can
Get it there in time.
take it into consideration for the next meeting. We could recommend that they take our recommendation and re-recommend it.
Just so that they'll be able to see it. And then on page 5,
Actually, Lori, I forwarded this memo, which is the one that really should be attached, not the one that is attached. And in my opening remarks, I suggested that it was proposed that a stiff civil penalty be applied. And so, it came to them as correspondence. They should have been aware of it.
And they made reference to that letter the other night at the meeting.
yeah, I just
I mean,
the 2 council members I talked
it's
to,
not the same
they
as
had,
having the official stamp of approval, but it was...
I don't think it got passed on to them very effectively as a recommendation, since at least 2 of the council members hadn't even heard the term before. So
Probably didn't read their package.
probably didn't read their packet as carefully as they could have. But I think when we go so far as to make an official recommendation, which again isn't that often, that they ought to hear about it from staff or in a letter from ourselves. Or
So are we
Anyway.
going to write a letter in regards to this
should
one?
write a letter,
And
since it didn't
directing
happen.
Paul to do that?
Or one of us could write it. I'd be happy to write it.
Okay.
Well, the city attorney was here, and
Yeah,
and
he was.
you can write the letter, but I'll just tell the city attorney that this is on, so he can also talk about it.
Okay.
Since the city attorney is sitting in the audience, can't we just make mention of it to him now? Then you don't have to write a letter and just say, Mr. City Attorney, would you please follow up on that recommendation?
I will.
Okay. I think we ought to still write a letter.
Okay. Go ahead,
Didn't
Lloyd.
work last time, so. And then on page 5, underneath the 3 little asterisks near the bottom of the page, Holzer stated she would like the landscape ordinance and the architectural review thing agendized. This is the second time I asked for it, and I just, as a reminder, it again did not appear on this agenda. And the reason I've been putting these things in the minutes is so there's a record of the fact that I asked for it, so.
That will be on the August 9th, and you'll have in your packet the current regulations.
So August 9th for that one?
We do have copies of the regulations, so.
Put together a special packet.
And then the only other thing was this attachment. Was this the wrong attachment?
Yeah.
Good, because, I know when you wrote this memo, I wasn't here, and this isn't what really happened, so I would hate history to reflect that I did anything unilaterally, because that isn't what happened. So,
Okay, now,
yes.
that is my correction, and I'll give give this to Tammy. This is the correct memo that I wanted attached. And you probably never saw that one, so you had no idea what it was.
It's a different one.
And the other one, just take that off.
Do you want me to add this to these edits?
You're going to replace this. You take this one off.
I had, well, one real minor and then a few others. One is Tammy, my last name is A-C-K instead of A-K. I don't have a nameplate here yet, so you wouldn't know that. On page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down, Commissioner Prusak stated he would like the commission to view other alternative penalties. That was not in reference to demolition. That was in reference to people who get a building permit and then go against the permit. That I'd like us to look for, not just look at demolition, but start looking at other violations of building permits and what recourse is there for that.
Your microphone, I really can't.
I'm sorry. I was saying that in the minutes, my reference to alternative penalties was not in reference to demolition permits, but in reference to other violations of building permits done by people with permits to build. And then on page 5, about 2/3 of the way down, Commissioner Prusak stated he would deny the proposal even if the fire issues were worked out. What I had actually said before that was that it seems that we've already spent staff time and money, and the letter from the fire chief is clear, and if it's going to cost us more money to have him come back, then I see there's no reason to continue the item. And that's it.
I'll move for approval of the minutes with corrections.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, May 10th? You want that one at the back as well, Conley?
The back with it's all part of the training and discussion.
I wasn't sure about that. Okay. Okay, then we're going to reorganization of the commission. Discussion and possible action for reorganization, on July 12th, Commissioner Weaver requested this item because there is new membership on the commission. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think because of the new makeup of the commission, I would like to make a motion that we have a nomination for new officers.
Okay.
I'd like to, we don't need a motion to do that, do we?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Well, I'd like to know what the justification for this is.
Well,
We didn't reorganize when I came on the commission. We didn't reorganize when Connolly came on the commission.
We reorganized when Conley came on the commission.
Well, do you want it to be a motion? I'll second it I'll second the motion for it so that we can discuss why this might be a good idea. We've changed chairs many times for many reasons. I was the chair for a few months, and then we changed kind of midstream, and Dennis was the chair for a while, and then I think one year we had 3 different chairs. So I do think with the change of the makeup of the commission, it's a good idea to assess where we want to go with who the chair is. I think it's a logical time, and we don't have any bylaws that state we should do anything differently, so I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right.
Should we vote? Well, there was a motion. To vote,
For reorganization? Well, I thought you didn't make it a motion.
No, I seconded it.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
So we're just going to vote on
Okay.
whether or not we should vote.
Okay, whether we should vote, whether we should have a reorganization. Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay.
I'd like to nominate Conley. He's got years and years and years of experience, and I don't want to do it, so.
That's a good reason.
So, and even though I've got some experience, I like not being the chair, so.
Mm-hmm.
I think Conley would do a great job.
Does the nomination need a second?
No, I think you just make nominations.
Okay. Do we want to vote?
Unless there's any other nominations.
I'm not going to nominate anybody. No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No. Okay.
Okay.
Now, what about vice chair, guys?
Oh, I guess we should do that, too.
Oh, first we'll
Want to move over?
move over first.
I get to sit next to Lori?
And draw numbers.
No, that's fine. No, just kidding. I never sat next to Lori, I've always been on the other side.
Okay. I entertain a motion or entertain nomination for a vice chairman.
Harry, I nominate Harry.
Well, I think as long as we're having our little reorganization, you ought to do it from the top, so I'm not going to accept that.
I didn't think so, but, okay.
Well, I'd be happy to take it. I've been vice chair lots of times. It doesn't entail too much.
No, not usually. I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay.
Vice chairman. Okay. Now, I ask that the two items that show on the agenda, one, the approval of the minutes for the May 10th meeting, and the item review of the 80-unit Broad Street project be relegated to the end of the agenda so that we can get the public items out of the way so that the people don't have to stay here if they don't want to. Okay. So that moves us on to continued items, architectural review, 596 Railroad Avenue, Stephen and Joan DeSena, applicant. Do we have representatives here?
I heard the word railroad, that's all. Is that for 588 railroad?
596 Railroad.
Right.
596, different one. Paul?
Did you bring yours?
This is
It's helpful so the audience can hear you.
Well, this is a proposal to continue the development of the railroad subdivision. These are undersized lots. This particular lot is 6,943 square feet. The home would be 1,619 square feet as proposed, with a 400 square foot garage. Lot coverage is 31%. That's pretty much my report, and anything you want to add, please do.
Did you say 16? It was 1169.
Let's see what happened there. 1169.
Yeah.
The second floor was 450 square feet.
That's totally unfinished. That's going to be unfinished.
But they're approving
Eventually, it will be about a 1,600-foot house. Yeah.
Yes, so I
That's
added that
what's
to it.
mandated for that area.
So the floor area won't be built out in the beginning, but
No.
at some point you will do that.
Yeah, right. This is for this. Steve DeSena and I developed this property years ago.
Excuse me, sir. Can you introduce yourself and your
Oh, I'm
name
sorry.
and address?
I thought you.
for the
I'm
record?
Bud Newman.
And the address?
Pardon me?
Address?
882 Gold Flat, Nevada City. Okay, this is for Steve DeSena. It's for his mother. And she currently lives over in Cypress Hills, and he wants to get her beside him, right, so he can look after her. Anyway, it's designed now for we're just going to finish the first floor. And then when time passes, they'll finish off the second floor, and it will be the 1,600 foot, that's allowed for this area, for that area. And other than that, it's just a little framed house with an attached garage.
I have something.
actually didn't, it's the one thing I did get.
Some of the houses are looking absolutely exactly alike over there, which is something our design guidelines guide us not to do. So, I don't know, the one thing I don't know if it's possible, given the shape of the lot, is there any way to put the garage door on the side rather than in the front?
Well, yeah, you could for about $6,000 or $8,000, but that would use up probably another 10 or 15% of the lot. And we were trying to get away from that.
I remember it. Should have jumped in there.
So why would it cost that much more?
Well, you're gonna have to grade it. You have to take it down. See, you're driving straight in as opposed to coming around, and there's about a 6% slope, and you probably have to take it down another 4 feet. 3 feet anyway.
What does everybody else have to?
I think we ought to approve it and let him go home.
Yeah, my feeling is that I agree with you, Lori, on the one hand in isolation, but my feeling, and this is not a slight on the development there, but my feeling is that the development is not consistent already with the general plan and the design guidelines, the way a lot of the houses were constructed there, architecturally speaking.
Pardon me, where?
In that subdivision, in the railroad. The other houses that
Every one of them meets
I'm just,
back, size, and everything.
and I'm talking about design guidelines, though, architectural design. It's not a slight on you. It's just my interpretation of the general plan, the design guidelines. And so that being the case, trying to create a house that's more authentic in that area because it's surrounded by other homes there. It's not like it's on the end. It's a corner lot that has houses on two sides in a sense. I don't really see the purpose of that.
The house right adjacent is it doesn't have the gingerbread, but it's a traditional looking house. The last we did down the street is a traditional looking house, and it has some gingerbread.
Well, I think that, the houses are pretty traditional looking and generally look nice. I think where we've fallen down and I don't even know if we even thought about it as we were going along, but as we approved each individual one, I don't think we were thinking about making them look different. That's where I think we fell down. And I once again, I'd like us to start working a little bit more on making garages less visible in new. That's all, but I'm willing to just go ahead with it. I mean, it faces Woods Court rather than Railroad, so it's not as visible as if it faced Railroad, so.
I move for approval as presented.
I'll second that.
Under discussion, since I didn't have a chance to discuss it. As far as the garage facing the street, when you get into something like a cul-de-sac that we have here, I don't think it's as onerous. And this sort of completes the project.
Yeah, there's only...
It's the final... Excuse me, sir.
Excuse me, there's 2 more lots, but they would be pretty expensive to build on, so there's nothing to be put on them for a long time.
Yeah. And to assuage you, Victor, I think it's sort of the final piece of a bad idea. But they look nice and it's well maintained. It's all
it looks,
glass
the areas,
construction and all that. Yeah.
and it's a real neighborhood too. I mean, there were kids out there playing when I was looking around. Yeah.
Well, we did one really good thing with that subdivision. Glenda will remember, the ones on Railroad, we required that they be under 1,700 square feet.
1,600.
1,600.
16 and under. That's what it would be when it's finally finished.
Right. So maybe this is one of those parcels too, but that we were concerned about the big house syndrome. So I think we stepped out on that one, did a pretty good job.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay.
Did it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a 15-day appeal period for anybody that's That's right.
I got back early.
Okay, next item, hearing for the public. Comments on items not on the agenda are welcome at this time. However, action or discussion by the commission may not occur at this time. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, please. Does anybody have anything to address the commission about?
My name is Abigail Givens, and I live at 11650 Banner Mountain Trail. And I've put up this zoning district map there with some bright pink flags at points of activity that I'm aware of, and I expect there are probably others that I'm not aware of. But I just find it helpful as we're going through some of these projects to have an idea of how much is actually kind of happening around town and how much we appreciate the Planning Commission's hard work in dealing with so many issues all at the same time. I did want to make a couple of brief comments. The Deer Creek Park 2 project,
Which is over here, it comes off of Red Dog Road, it's about 580 acres with a proposed 193 houses. It's in the county. The county is now in the process of bidding out the EIR. We really need citizen input for that, and they're going to do night meetings for it. So keep watching your Nevada County website, and then...
Abigail, you should be addressing the commission, if you would, please, not the audience.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I beg your pardon. Secondly is the 20 city lots up on American Hill. I just was up there a few days ago, and it seemed to me there was an awful lot of grading, and I've just begun to kind of go through that file, and I didn't see any notification of variances having been passed for steep slope grading. I could be wrong in that case, but I just wondered, now that that's under construction and Chief Kelly Drive is under construction, whether we're kind of keeping an eye on that process up there. And then very recently, I know there's quite a lot of pressure to annex parts of the county into the city, and I'm sure part of the reason is the really need for funds in the city by annexing property which can then be developed at a much denser rate than it would have been in the county. Obviously increasing our AB 1600 funds and all other kinds of support for the city. But we can get into a vicious cycle if we annex so quickly that we really can't meet all that infrastructure needs. And the project in specifics that I'm aware of is about 100 acres just off Gracie. I think it's called St. Francis Wood. Would someone correct me if I'm wrong?
That's correct.
And I understand it's several ladies from out of the area, I believe, own it, and there's beginning to be a conversation at the city level, and I'm very interested and would just like to know when the ARC meetings are going to be. I do understand they've already begun to discuss street names and so forth, so I would have thought an ARC might have come by now, but maybe I missed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the commission? Staff approvals and determinations. Certain staff decisions have a discretionary nature and subject to appeal. Other decisions are narrowly administrative and not subject to appeal. This time, audience members may comment on the following items. For appeal requests, please contact the city planner. We have a minor architectural approval of 416 Zion Street, which was a re-roof. Paul?
Just a re-roof, and that's all this week. Very quiet.
Used soft hammers. Comments on that? Okay, new items. Tree removals. 648 Zion Street, Miners Group applicant, Randall Frizzell. Is it Frizzell? Is Mr. Frizzell here? Or anybody representing?
I'd like to put this one off anyway, because I couldn't quite figure out where all the trees were. Probably if I'd had more time, I could have, but this map doesn't have a north arrow or any kind of arrow, and It also doesn't show where the street is.
I think I finally figured it out, but it was hard.
It was hard, but if you read in here, kind of.
Well, we will continue this item since there's no
So,
representative.
Laura, are you asking
Tell
that
me,
the...
where is the
This is
street?
the back of Miners.
The back of the building?
That's the back of the building.
So Zion is out here?
Yeah.
Parking lot curls back
So that's
around that other
Reward?
house.
That's Reward on the right-hand side?
Be over here.
Okay. See, I had it backwards then.
It's a far back corner.
Running trees in the front.
No.
No, on the side,
Right,
though.
on the
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, I was looking at the side going.
I just thought I'd be able to figure it out real quickly when I went out there, and I didn't,
It's
so.
in the back of the,
They're actually be in the back of the house next door.
Back of the
Yeah.
house next door.
I wanted another map anyway, because I was unable to count the existing trees to see what that situation was
okay.
with that map.
Okay, so we will continue that item and request a more detailed map be prepared. Okay. Demolition of pre-1942 building, 606 Gold Flat Road, John L. and Miles Brokaw. Could you gentlemen please state your name and address?
Actually, for the record, it's John R. Brokaw, not John L.
Thank you.
And I've chosen Michael Taylor to help me in representing this project.
And you're located,
The project is on 606.
your residence? or-
13901 Highland Drive, off Rattlesnake.
688 South Auburn.
Thank you. Paul?
This is an application to demolish an existing building that is pre-1942. As I mentioned in the staff report, that longtime local resident Joe Day recalls the house from his youth back in the 1920s and 30s. And since the packet went out, he provided a letter to the city, which I'll pass down. Looks like we've got plenty of copies for anybody in the audience as well. Simply to establish a date when the building was built. There is a letter by civil engineer David Long that states that the add-ons are poorly constructed with no foundation footings, and that is the structural report basically for this building. As I mentioned in the staff report, that's a typical situation for any of our older houses in Nevada City. The question of whether the building is unusable is not addressed in the application material, and that's a very important question when determining whether to permit a demolition to occur. As I mentioned during the Tom Stacer hearing at the city council level, Councilman Cottrell made the point that that house had been used up to the point that the application had been made for demolition, so he felt that showed its usability. Now, is Bill Falcone here? Did the city engineer show up? Well, he has probably an emergency. He might have an emergency at home, so we were hoping he would be here too. But anyway, that's the report that I have at this time.
How long has it been vacant? Or is it vacant?
No, there are renters in it.
Oh, there are renters in it, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And the lot is what size?
3/4 of an acre, 0.75 or 77.
What can you tell us about
This project was purchased by Mr. Brokaw in 1990. And he purchased the property when it was in the county and not in the city limits at that time. And he purchased the property for the sole purpose of moving his established business in Grass Valley to Nevada City. He was present at all the meetings for the annexation of that property into the city limits, and was clear with the process that his intent was still to build or move his business from Grass Valley to that property, and gave his support in the annexation of that property with that understanding during the annexation process. As far as the building is concerned, I did a title search in I checked with at the planning department, I did a title search, I went to records, and there is no record of the date this house was built at all. So I went and did a metro scan of all the residences that were built on Gold Flat Road, and I included that in my package. And there was one house in the turn of the century that's obviously a turn of the century house. All the rest of the residences on Gold Flat Road were built between the year 1940 and 1948 in that era. So we're under the belief that that house was built sometime between 1940 and 1948. I was not positive the exact date of the building of the house, so I checked the box that said it, because it could be a pre-1942, because I'm not absolutely positive. As far as the house being built in 1920s, you can look at the design of the house, and it clearly is built later than the 20s. Then you have the Depression, so I'm left to believe that it was built in the 40s. With my background and experience, it's what it seemed to be built, the era it was built in. I did supply you guys with some photographs in my packet, and I have blown these photos up so that you guys can...
Here.
I was a subcontractor on the house on top of Broad Street on the renovation of that project, on the exterior part of the renovation of that with Bob Green. And I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what it would cost to renovate that building or to restore that building from that experience on that project. And I also wrote a letter attached that I believe it would cost $175 to $225 a square foot to renovate this house, to bring it to a residential current code. I believe that it is in a commercial district. To bring that house, it would be, I think, nearly impossible to bring that house to a commercial code of public access. Anything else we need to add?
I think you covered it there.
Paul, was this industrial zone prior to the annexation? Do you recall? I know that was before you were aboard, but...
Earl's looking very astonished back there. What,
I don't know what the zoning was prior to annexation.
Just rural residential.
It was clearly a commercial. It was M in the county. It was M whatever. Now it's L.
It was M1.
It was
That does
M1.
make sense. It was M. I would probably agree with that. That, of course, was under the county zoning. It was M1 at that time, yes.
and annexed in as L1.
As light industrial.
I should know this. What is your business?
Import auto service.
I'm sorry, I used to take my car to you all the time.
I know.
Actually, I do have something else to add. I definitely would be asking for I'm asking for the approval of the demolition of this building, but with the understanding that we would not demo this building until our entire project has been approved. And I've talked with Jack, and we are more than willing to bond the project at the value of the house. If for some reason we wanted to demo it prior to getting all of our acceptances in the county. For example, if I were to get a grading permit prior to getting we'd want to demo there may be a reason to tear the house down sooner than getting all of the permits in place. That's what I'm trying to say.
Looks like Paul wants to...
Well, I'll just, mention that the issue of the, what Mike was just talking about is discussed in a letter that was included in your packet, where the city staff said that if perchance you got approval for demolition, that we would recommend as a condition that a bond be, let me see if I can find In addition, it says, "I have discussed your request with city staff. Accordingly, if the planning commission does grant a demolition permit, your proposed condition of approval could legally be included as part of that motion." That is what Mike is suggesting, that he not demolish it until he gets site plan approval. In addition, staff would also strongly recommend that a bond for the value of the existing residence be posted as soon as possible. This is to provide additional assurance that under no circumstances would the building be demolished until such time as all necessary permits were acquired. And one of the issues I think that needs to be discussed by the commission is this house 1940s or is it 1920s? Because that makes all the difference as far as our ordinance is concerned. We have here the letter that I sent out is an eyewitness account who remembers the house, Joe Day, and as from what I understand, there are others who remember the house. And from the city staff point of view, there's no question that this is a pre-1942 house.
Well, I think we need to get into that too, but I think this issue of approving a demolition, even if it's a sort of approval, as long as you don't tear it down before we get site plan approval, I think that's really a slippery slope to start going down or up or whatever, because in the past, we have just stayed away from that. It's one of our, I mean, I know you're not going to do anything you shouldn't do, but it has in the past been one of our greatest sticks that we just won't allow the demolition permit or approval until we see the site plan and agree to what is going to replace it. So I would hate to even get into that, but even before we get into that I think we can discuss, if we decide it's pre-1942, I think we can discuss generally whether or not we think this ought to be demolished, so that you'll have a feeling for where we might be going. It won't be any kind of a guarantee if we don't vote on it. But I think we should stick with past precedent. For many, 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 many years, we just said, we don't approve the demolition permit until we have the site plan and architectural review on whatever's replacing it approved. So I don't think we should change that, but I'd be willing to talk about whether or not we think it's a good idea to demolish it.
May I interject?
I don't know, are we doing it back and forth? Or?
I think we're having our discussion right now.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I think that I can certainly understand where the applicant is coming from. He needs to know whether anything that he proposes is going to be acceptable in place of this existing building. And I can certainly understand why he needs to know that before he goes and expends a lot of money having a project designed, only to come back here and find out that he's stuck with his house of some questionable origin. To me, the fact that it was, however it got zoned L1, strikes me as that's the appropriate use of that property at this point. And I don't think this old house is going to satisfy his requirements for the type of business that he's talking about.
Well, I guess I'll just cut to the chase. I do think it's pre-1942 based on the account here. We have an ordinance that speaks to that. It's pretty black and white. I wonder if there's a way, it's a pretty big site, that the add-ons could be taken off and the structure could be used and incorporated into whatever buildings you need as your office. And it could be gutted, and as long as the exterior looks the same of the original part of the structure, I think, my gut level feeling is you could really do something there.
I brought a site plan that shows the footprint of the house. And
just because it's zone industrial doesn't mean our demolition, ordinance doesn't apply.
Could Tammy notation on that?
So, Lori, are you suggesting, though, that he could, after taking off those clear additions, that he could then add to the structure in the back?
If you kept the existing structure, you could gut it and make it part of your office or whatever.
Right. How come
If you need more square footage, you could add to it.
How come a partial demolition isn't a slippery slope?
The house is sitting on granite rocks on the piers. There's no perimeter foundation. The floor is several different levels.
How do you know when the additions were done?
Well, I'd be happy to keep all the additions. I think some of them you can, are clearly, were done way after when the original structure was done. So But, if you want to entertain keeping those two to be a purist on the demolition ordinance, that'd be okay with me. I don't think it's necessary.
Victor?
Well, it's hard to, from the exterior, it's hard to see sort of what the integrity is of the original structure, obviously, and I walked around it. There were no adults home, and the kids didn't want to let me inside, so obviously didn't go inside. But they did give me permission to poke around back and crawling underneath a little bit, and I don't have an iota of the building experience that you have. And I saw you working out on that house in the hot 100-degree weather there, and because I was living across the street at the time. But at the same time, we were renovating our house up on American Hill, and there's striking similarities when you get underneath. And again, without the experience in construction, I can see a lot of resemblances to the work that was done. Our house dates back to 1870s, but some additions put on 1920s, 1930s, some work, and I see a lot of similarities there in the kind of wood that was used and how it was hewn, etc. And I know that the later you get, that really starts to change because the machinery changed. So I have a sense that it's older than the 1940s as well. There are some other houses there already. Obviously, there's some residences on that section of Gold Flat, and I agree with Lori. It'd be nice if you could, in a reasonable way, keep that central part of the house almost as what you see from Gold Flat, and then building behind it and hiding, in a sense, from view the add-ons that you do. So, I mean, in a sense, what it looks like has the illusion of still being a home. It's a home office. I don't have a sense of the cost, of course, of what that would be. But as far as the foundation's concerned, that's exactly what our foundation was. No different. And we had to put in a foundation under it to bring it up to code. It can be done. And with a house that's sitting so high up, it's not necessarily as expensive to do as if this is a house you had to really jack up.
There wasn't a uniform building code until 1960. So just to give you a basic background, most of the homes prior to 1960 didn't have any building codes per se to be built by. If you look at that home is actually built from another home. They used wood from another residence to actually build that home. So they tore down a building somewhere else and then put that one up with the materials that you're looking at underneath that house. So I do believe that home was built later than in the 1920s, and whether it was before the Depression or after the Depression, I couldn't tell you. It might even be a Depression house in the sense that they were using an old house.
What they could.
Or,
Yeah.
The other thing, the property is zoned LI, and the very first thing that talks about in the LI zoning is an auto repair. There would be no way to incorporate a auto repair station with a residence. Jack only needs 200 square feet of office space, not 1,200 square feet of office space at a cost of $200,000 or $300,000. So the cost factor, which goes back into your guys' ordinances, I think becomes a factor as well in this. That it doesn't justify spending that much money to create an office space, and I really don't think that house actually you could even make it public accessible in the sense of where the bathrooms are located and the kitchen's located, and it would be a major project to make that the bathrooms and the office for his adjoining business.
I do have a bit of expertise. Okay, this little craftsman bungalow is typical of what was built in the early 1920s. I have no doubt that that's when it was built, and then you have an eyewitness account to add on top of that. So I don't think there's any question on the prior to 1942 question. Hopefully, our city engineer is supposed to be here tonight to give us his input. We do not have a report from him, and I think it's very essential that we do have a report from him as far as the feasibility of whether or not the structure is sound for continuing use. And I wouldn't want to make any decisions until we did have input and report from the city engineer. As far as the use, whether it is feasible to try and make an office out of this residence, that's not really our task. Our task is preserving the building, whether or not it's suitable for an office or a repair shop, or that's another item. And I certainly would lean far away from issuing or granting any permits for demolition prior to approval of site plan or development application. That's, as Lori said, that's a long, rocky road to go down. I would never want to entertain that. I would like to see this item continued until we get input from the city engineer. If there's any other further information regarding the authenticity of the construction date, because that is, as Paul says, it's a very big factor in the decision we have to make according with our ordinance.
Well, I would just like to say a couple of things that...
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
I skipped over.
No worries. It's not a problem. For me personally, the zoning is light industrial, and I think that that's what that land is meant to be used for. We have a responsibility to determine whether it's of special historical interest or value, mother lode type construction. You say it's craftsman. The definition of mother lode construction is, or style, type of architecture is, we're not quite sure what that really is. So I would be more inclined to go with that you're allowed to use the land for what it's zoned for, and what you build and you bring to us, you create something that works in that particular area, that works for you and enhances the area, because this home in its current structure and all that is, there's no value there as far as that I can see. So, but go ahead with what you were continuing it or something.
Well, I'll move that we continue it until the city engineer can give his input.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I was going to save these comments for a little later because I think they pertain to the item that we're going to finish up with tonight. But, if you didn't expect light industrial there, why in the world was it zoned light industrial? And why did you bring it into the county, into the city if you didn't, if you didn't want to do that? That's number one. I think that along with this is my objection, which I have stated along the way with regard to this new proposed ordinance. It's whatever it is, 8901 or whatever, that extended the historical district arbitrarily on pre-42 buildings. It's a disaster, and pretty soon we're going to hang up a closed sign here in Nevada City, and maybe that's what we should do right now, and then we wouldn't have to come down here every 2 weeks and have to disappoint people.
Well, I think you can still have light industrial on site and save the building, and as a matter of fact, have an award-winning project.
Possibly, but maybe not for this man. And since it's his property, and he wants to do something with it, I'm having a real difficult time with this thought process that says that this thing has got to be saved just because it may or may not be built before 1942, and Joe Day may or may not have grown up across the street. That hardly makes it significant in my mind. So, anyway, we have a motion and a second, I guess.
Lori, on your motion, how would you fit in the discussion on issuing a permit for demolition prior to approval of a site plan or development application?
I guess I just wasn't even going to address that issue right now. If we feel like we need the city engineer's I don't know. I don't know that we need the city engineer's input, actually. Really, I think we ought to just not consider this application at all because we don't have the site.
Could you speak into your microphone a little more, please?
Sorry. I mean, I was, as a courtesy to you, because you seem to want to continue it, that's why I made that motion, but I really think we just shouldn't consider the application until we have a site plan at the same time. And I think Mr. Brokaw probably gets the feeling that there's a majority here that probably don't want to have the house demolished, so I would think if you come back with a site plan, it might be a good idea to have at least one of the alternatives be a site plan that incorporates the old, the core part of the old house into the office or whatever. I mean, that's what I'd really like. Did you second it? Did we have a second on my motion?
I second
Yeah,
it.
a second.
So, I mean, I'd be happy to make that motion instead if you'd like to withdraw your second.
Sure, I withdraw.
I'd like to just clarify something, Mr. Chair. I took the site plan off of Lori's desk and put it back there.
That's not a site
Because-
plan, that's just
That was the site plan for the new building.
for the existing, oh, it wasn't?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And the rules of the game, the demolition request does not require a public hearing. A site plan approval does require a public hearing, and so no site plans can be reviewed even on a preliminary basis without due notice. And just so the applicant is clear on that, so just want to be clear on what the rules are, and that's why I did remove it from her.
Well, right, that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about right now,
Well,
though, so
If you require that this
we'll have to
demolition
get this application in.
have a site plan, that means that more applications will have to be made and the public hearing would have to be noticed.
Right. So I'll move that we not consider this demolition request without a site plan application.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
3 and 2. Thank you.
15-day appeal. 15-day appeal.
15 days appeal, well, we didn't do anything. So what's the appeal?
We didn't deny
We didn't
it.
do it. We didn't approve or deny anything. Did we?
And I don't think the application should have even been accepted at City Hall, to tell you the truth, but
I think there is a point here, and tying the two together, I really would like a legal opinion on it. It seems to me that is two entirely separate issues, and tying the one to the other, I would question whether or not that really is
You mean tying demolition to development?
yeah. I mean,
Well,
I think, suppose I wanted a vacant lot.
That's pretty typical wherever you go. It's a method that the communities have to ensure that things just don't get torn down.
Suppose I'm the owner
Not knowing what's gonna happen.
of a public hazard, which many of these places are. Public nuisance, really.
somebody's living in this one.
Well, that doesn't mean that it may not be.
But we actually,
Anyway, we can't.
we actually authorized the demolition of a house over on Sacramento Street because it was a public safety issue. The one next door to the Piley Hill, where Dennis Kutch designed that new house. But that demolition was allowed because it was a public hazard. And that was the only reason it was allowed. Okay.
Well, if the city attorney tells us we can't do this, which we've done many, many times in the past, if somehow things have changed, then I would just say, for the record, we should deny the demolition permit, and they could come back with another method. It would have the same effect, though, so.
It's extremely costly to put a project together.
We know that. We know all that. It's just, this.
So to clarify things, I assume then to clarify, your motion was to deny this application?
No, it was not to consider it unless
Consider it.
if the city attorney wants to tell me that we can't do that, even though it's been done many times in the past, let us know, and I'll change, hope we can change the motion, but we voted on it, and,
I don't have an opinion at this point, so let me clarify.
okay.
We'll let it stand
He'll
as
come
is
back to
until,
us when he has
until
his
further
opinion.
notice.
I've had a real difficult time keeping the house insured. I've been canceled by 3 different policies, and I've got riders on my own personal homeowners because they know what the building's like to insure, and that's the condition it's in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move back to two items at the top of the list. May 10th, 2001 minutes. Approval and/or of the use of minutes. I would like to just kind of review what we went through. When, after we had our hearing on May 10th on the 80-unit project, because there was a 2-week, there was not a subsequent commission meeting the following 2 weeks. The minutes never were approved prior to the actual public hearings by the city council on this project. So I requested that the draft minutes that were prepared not be used as an official record of the May 10th meeting, because there were inconsistencies and some vulgarities and so forth. I asked that the actual audio tape that was made during the hearing be used as the official minutes of that hearing. We have subsequently been advised that by the city clerk that, in her opinion, that written minutes are required. I believe maybe that was the city attorney's recommendation or advice.
Actually, legally, it's not required. We just felt we really need minutes because it's too hard to go back and review a 4-hour tape. So legally, as long as you have some record, that's all you need. So the videotape legally was what was required.
So I'll let open the comments. Harry?
You mean corrections, additions, that sort of thing?
Well, whether or not we want to.
Well, my
You're into
understanding
that?
is that we've been requested to approve some form of written minutes, and I've been told that while these things obviously don't cover the entire, whatever it was, 5.5 hours, 6.5 hours that we were here verbatim, they come pretty close to demonstrating the sense of what happened. And so I think if we sort through them, make our corrections or additions as we think appropriate, that then we can move for approval of these as written minutes. The tape is always available in these meetings if somebody wants to contest something that's in the minutes that they feel was not represented accurately. They can go back and avail themselves of the tapes, is my understanding. So, I mean, we're just trying to, I guess, create a written document here. Okay?
Victor wasn't.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was in attendance at the meeting. I wasn't sitting on the commission, but I was here for
You're
that
not in
meeting.
any position to approve or disapprove.
Well, we can, I think legally, we're allowed to approve the minutes, even if we weren't there. I think we just can't make the motion to do it.
Well, I would.
but
I mean,
vote
if
on
there's some corrections, or if there was discussion on corrections or something like that, I'd be more than willing to participate because I was here. I would abstain in voting on them. That's what I would do.
I think, I agree with Harry. If Kathy wants paper minutes, then we should probably do that. But I don't know.
Well, Connolly, are you prepared to weed through this and fix them?
No.
Or would you?
I can't make myself weed through these things.
Oh, so what you're suggesting is that for this meeting in question, that we use the tape as the actual minutes, and legally we can do that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'd like to stick with that.
What will become of this document?
That part of it will, we'll just have a notation that refer to the tapes, and then if anybody ever needs.
Well,
for some
if this is
reason-
going to be around in any form, I want to, I want to get my corrections. Some of them are my usual nitpicky little things, and some of them are more significant. It's been a while since I went through this, but I got them all noted.
Yeah. So with that, I would like to
move that we use the tape as the minutes of this meeting, or of this portion of the meeting.
How would you feel about amending that and just saying that on these minutes, one way to sort of make these minutes more accurate is to write at the top that it says that these are sort of partial minutes, and for a more thorough account?
Well, no, I think the problem is there's some inaccuracies. It's not just that it's partial. Actually, I'm not sure I can make the motion, can I, Jim? I think I can just vote
because you weren't
on it. No, even though you're here, as I understand it, you can vote.
No, because you weren't.
I think I can't make the motion, though.
I'm not sure you can even vote since you weren't here to
It says she was here.
Well, I was here, but,
were you at-
no, I've always been told, I thought you told me that even if we were absent, even if I was
Says
on
she was here.
vacation and wasn't here, I can vote on the minutes, I just can't make the motion.
If you
Now,
didn't
it seems
participate,
kind
I
of
don't know how
weird,
you
but-
could vote. That doesn't make sense, does it?
So I thought you were here for the meeting, you just didn't participate in that portion.
Yeah, I was sitting in the audience, and there were certainly other things I was up here at the beginning of the meeting.
So then I believe we're...
So you were present then?
So actually, I
She
was
here
present,
for
so
the
it's a
other
moot
items.
point.
It was a
Yeah.
sign and something.
That's good. That's true. Now, where were we at?
You were asking if you could make the motion.
So I guess I can, because I really was at the meeting. Okay, and so you wanted to amend it to do what?
Well, I guess I didn't understand. My understanding now is that you want, and it was Harry's questions too, in a sense, you want to just discard this, and this document wouldn't exist.
The
There'd be no
80-unit portion of it.
There'd be no written record of that, and
Right.
all that would be is a piece of paper that says who was present, who was absent, and then refer to the videotape or the audio
And
tape.
if anybody ever really needed the information for, God knows what, there would have to be a transcription, I guess. And hopefully that would never happen, but I don't feel equipped to correct the inaccuracies. But
Nor do I. So your motion,
That-
again, is
my
what?
motion is to, for the 80-unit portion of the minutes,
Let's clarify this. Can you or can you not make the motion?
She was present now, I think she can make the motion.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll second the motion.
okay. Did you get the motion?
All right. Since we did have business other than the 80 units, are we intending to approve that portion of these minutes?
That's what the motion says,
The written portion?
the written portion.
Well, in that case, let's see.
You got things you want to change?
You have... I have one item, I guess. It's on page 1, and it's right below Lori's proposal regarding the 35-unit proposal. And in that same meeting, we also, I made that we, a proposal that the makeup of the ARC should be agendized for a discussion.
I remember that.
And I think that, obviously, I'm at least as concerned about getting that discussed as Lori is about her 35 units.
No, I'm more concerned because I've been at that one for 7 months.
Okay.
So, with that, I will move for approval of the written minutes down.
It's already a motion.
Well, I'm not, I want to divide this then.
Well, that's your
That's
motion.
fine.
The
I mean, I
motion
already had that in the motion, though, that,
Okay,
Yeah, but I don't want to, I don't think that I'm going to vote for the rest of the motion.
Let's see what you're saying. So he'd like to separate out the 80-unit piece of this, for now at least. He wants to vote on that separately. I'm fine with amending that motion. And
Okay.
we're going to make two motions, basically, is all that means. The first motion is,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think we ought to just leave it alone. Vote on the first motion, it's on the table.
What is the motion?
The motion is to accept the, all of the minutes, with the exception of the 80-unit portion with your change, and that the 80-unit portion, there will be a reference in the minutes relative to the 80-unit item that, you know, you're supposed to refer to the audio and videotapes.
That was seconded by Victor. Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Just a point of order, because we were talking about, you were able to make the motion because you were here at the meeting, but you weren't at the meeting. Maybe you needed to second that
Point
motion.
point of order.
I don't know, I just wanted to make sure that
You
it
need
was
to make a
illegal.
point of order before you make the vote. But luckily, we don't use Robert's Rules of Order. So.
Well, I was just wondering, because you made a second on the minutes that you did not attend, maybe that needs to
Yeah,
be
I
done
think-
over
I
again.
think-
Necessary, then we'll
Second.
change that, and I will second the motion. I will be the seconder.
Okay. Do you want us to vote again?
Does that also
I
mean
don't think
that
it's-
Victor can't vote?
I think it just means he can't make the second, is that correct?
I thought he was present.
No, he
He was present. He was
Wasn't a
present.
commissioner.
No, Jim Rose was on the commission.
I think as long as you're present at the meeting.
He was present.
Vote on what the
He was very
I
present.
spoke at the meeting, yeah.
Okay, well, then maybe everything's okay.
Okay, got it?
Interesting that he has a vote, he wasn't on the commission.
So it was moved by Oberholzer, seconded by Weaver, and approved 3-2.
Okay.
That do with that? Okay, the next item. The review of the 80-unit West Broad Street project planning process. Now, the commission invited the city manager and the city attorney to join us in this discussion. Would you like to come up and sit down, or you just want to sit there and watch?
No, we want you guys up here.
Welcome, welcome.
Good evening.
As we discussed several weeks ago, I guess it was the first commission meeting after the city council hearings on the 80-unit project. In fact, I'm the one that brought it up, that the commission received a lot of criticism the way the entire project was handled by the commission, and the decisions that the commission made. So we thought it would be advisable to have a general discussion of what happened, why it happened, and how could it happen in a better manner in the future.
Well, since that's a viewpoint that's not shared by all of us, perhaps since you're concerned, where do you think we went wrong?
Where do I think we went wrong?
Yeah. You seem to indicate that you thought that the commission had done a terrible job with this.
And you're
Well,
saying we, and who's we?
I have a few ideas that might be helpful to improving our process in the future. But I would also like to, before we get into it, how are we going to organize this? Is the public going to speak at some point? I think there are a lot of people that came to those hearings who in the past haven't been to many planning commission hearings and kind of had quite an awakening as to what, you know, city politics and city planning are all about, and it may be that people out here would have some good input also. So, but I've got definitely have a few points that I'd like to bring up.
Well, why don't you bring up your points and we'll take it from there.
All right. The sort of the categories that I'd like to discuss are, you know, first of all, it seems like a lot of what happened, there was a perception that there was sort of a sloppiness in the process, that you know, applications were incomplete and ARC meetings were held without, you know, an official application, and, you know, lots of little things. And my feeling was that occurred not because of any fault of the city's process, but because at the very beginning of the project, when the developers came to the city, there was, on the part of, I don't know who, perhaps, I don't know, there seemed to be a bias for the project that, that started these problems. And I think that's something that we should talk about. I think I'm a city planner, and I know when I work for a public agency, I try really hard to just be in the middle, not for or against a project. And so that's maybe something we can talk about, how we can avoid that perception of a bias when an applicant comes into the office. The other thing was the environmental review, and I think our environmental review process in general is somewhat weak, and unfortunately that really showed up on this project because it was such a large project. And then I think the last thing that I'd like to discuss is just how the Planning Commission just dealt with it in general at the table and in their discussions in relationship with the public. That the 3 nights that it was, how many nights was it? 2 nights?
What's that?
Or was it 1 night at the Planning Commission?
It was
just the 1 night.
It seemed like
just how that night went. Just everybody's demeanor and how things were handled that night. I think there's a lot of people out there that didn't feel good about that, and so I think maybe that's something we could tighten up in an area that we ought to talk about a little bit. So those are the 3 areas I'd like to generally discuss.
Can we ask some questions along the way?
Right open for discussion.
With regard to the environmental review, what more would you have asked for? We had reports that covered.
Well, I'll tell you what I would have asked for, and I did ask for it because as a member of the public, I went to the first ARC meeting, which there is no record of, I don't think. Maybe there's a half a tape or something, but I went to the first ARC meeting, and I think you were there, and then you left, and Ruth was there, and Jim was there. And I sat there and talked for half an hour about all the additional mitigation measures that should be added, all the additional studies that should be done, all the questions that were unanswered. And this coming from somebody who writes environmental impact reports every day. And there was just nothing that I said went anywhere. And again, I think that maybe was because there was this bias for the project. Let's get this thing through quickly. And I also think it's partly just our Nevada City process. I believe that when an applicant comes to the city and we do our initial environmental study, that if it's a project of any substance at all, we should be asking the developer to deposit funds so that the city planner can hire sub-consultants to help write that document. That's the way every other city and county does it. You don't let the developer go out and hire his own traffic consultant, his own archaeologist, his own biologist, and provide you the reports, because even if they're great reports, there's a perception of bias. And secondly, then the city planner doesn't really have anything that he can use to answer all the questions that he's required to answer on that huge checklist, and so questions go unanswered. Those are very basic things that every other city does, and there's really no reason why we shouldn't do that. In this case, probably it's a big enough project that an EIR should have been prepared. The community sort of dropped that request as things went along because I believe they just wanted to see the project go away. So, but the reality of the situation is that an EIR probably should have been prepared on a project of this scale. There were all kinds of, just questions still left in the initial environmental study that really weren't answered. And anytime you have those kinds of questions,
specifically, what questions?
Well, specifically, there were a number of impacts that were noted in the initial environmental study that were still significant and unmitigated. And whenever that happens, you get bumped into EIR status. There were issues that weren't even discussed. Cumulative impacts were not discussed in many, many, many areas. And so that leaves the question, are there cumulative impacts? We didn't know. But if there's a question, that either bumps you into further study or a full EIR. And I think that there were enough inadequacies and enough questions that probably an EIR should have been prepared. And I think any time we get a big project, I don't think that'll happen ever again in the city. I think we've learned our lesson. I hope we have. Big projects with significant traffic impacts, equal EIR. I hope that that's what we learned out of this.
If I can just jump in on that, because I do agree with you, Lori, particularly in answer to Harry. I think specifically the city infrastructure proved itself to, we did not, this project would have had a significant impact on the city's ability to serve, to continue to serve the level of service it's serving today.
Well, then...
ARC, we didn't know that.
We did not know that at ARC.
We didn't get any of that
But
stuff.
that's, beside that, I mean, I'm just saying beside that, looking back.
However, we did have questions we didn't know. We, at ARC level, we
Yeah.
didn't know, and I brought those issues up. And Mr. Cogley, with all due respect, you never, to the very end, recommended a full EIR.
I can remember,
And
I remember being in your kitchen and thinking that was the right way to go. But remember, we talked, I told you then that I thought an EIR was what we should have done. That was in April or
And
so.
I do think it's the planner's responsibility to be the guardian of CEQA, and I never heard that from you in public. So, I don't want this to get into a personal thing.
No, I don't want to
That
either.
was a problem,
But I
and
think
hopefully it'll never happen
It was
again.
the problem because the city, and the city manager could talk about this, address this. We were not aware until we got deeper and deeper into this project, just what the situation was with our sewer system and water system. We learned a lot. I think the initial study said it is unknown, but we can accommodate projects. That's what the original
Well, you
initial
don't
study
sign off an environmental document with "we don't know."
So the Cranmer engineering study, what you're saying is that you don't feel that was adequate, or that was correct or accurate.
Well, I think that after what the city engineer and the public works director discussed on May 10th, and it was clear that this project needed more analysis in order to, there was...
Well, okay, this is getting down to the point that I think I have. I mean, when you say that this reflects badly on the commission, I think that the problem, lies somewhere else.
Harry, I'll take it back to, Paul just mentioned, the input that we got from the city staff, from the city engineer and the public works director. After they made their very thorough presentations, discussing all of the problems that the city infrastructure would have, so forth, etc., you, the commissioner, asked one by one directly.
And what I asked them specifically was, had they mitigated to the level that was spelled out in the negative declaration that was issued? And they said no, but everything else I saw says to me that they had. Now, what happened was that additional mitigations got applied as they went along.
This was after everything was...
I know what you're saying.
After everything was there. You asked the city engineer and you asked the public works director, does this mitigate declaration?
No, that isn't my question, and that's why I asked it twice to try and be clear on that. There was a negative declaration that was issued by ARC, mitigated negative declaration, and that spelled out what the mitigations were to be. And that was issued. So somewhere along the line, somebody had to approve that.
Or deny it if you thought it was inadequate.
And that didn't happen.
Or deny the project. You can deny a project without, all the environmental review. You just can't approve a project without adequate environmental review.
Well,
so we could have denied it.
All right.
Let's stop dancing around the subject.
I'm not dancing around it.
What happened was, the city engineer and the public works director, after the presentations, were asked directly, essentially, does this mitigated negative declaration solve all of the problems that you have? And the answer was flat no.
No, I don't agree with you, Conley.
That's
what I believe My question is had they agreed to do what was required of them to mitigate the impacts in the mitigated negative declaration? And what they answered was, is this solving all of Nevada City's problems? And there's a big difference between those two. And where the problem lies is that they weren't quick enough to figure out what the problems were on a project of this size.
So even if that was the problem, from sitting over there, what I found shocking was that, because I didn't know the subtleties of that, Harry, I didn't understand that, that
I still don't.
at the ARC meeting, things were laid out, those things were mitigated, and now new things came up. But from the public, when I'm sitting there and I'm hearing our city staff, who are the trained, paid people to give us this advice, tell us no. As the public, I assume the commission's going to vote, continue this item, deny it for now, whatever, but not approve it. That's what I found shocking.
Well, it didn't get approved, in fact.
Oh, the negative declaration got approved?
Oh.
Everything got approved except the site plan.
Yeah.
It was, and that's the public, that was the shock of the public. And I came and addressed City Council at the next meeting and said it was a surreal experience. And the main surreal part of it was that as a public person, we were hearing from city staff that there's many reasons why this project should not be approved the way it's written. And yet 3 out of the 4 commissioners were approving everything except for one of them.
In the material I got, they agreed to fix the sewer system. You can't expect them to go out and try and condemn the property that's going to be required to put the sewer in. The city's got to participate in that, and I noticed that there was some reluctance to do that. They agreed to put the extra water line in to provide the additional water on the assumption that, like when you have PG&E extended, that as other projects come along, they would get reimbursed for that advance. Which was going to be in addition to the water improvements that they talked about with regard to the size of the tank, etc. It just seemed to me like the target was moving for them all the time, and they didn't really, didn't seem like there was anything that they could do that was going to be enough at the end. You talk about a traffic mitigation. What in the world do you do with a traffic mitigation that you're not going to stand for, which, is to change our intersection down here at Broad and Pine?
Right, and that's exactly my point. When you have, an impact with something that you cannot mitigate, whether it's just because you can't find a mitigation measure or because the mitigation is unacceptable, which a light at the corner would be, then you have to make, a decision. You either approve the project with overriding considerations, and if you're doing that, you need to have done a full EIR. You can't have an unmitigated impact. A mitigated negative deck means you've mitigated everything, and you just can't do that. Now, I don't expect the Planning Commission to understand these little nuances. I do expect staff to help us with that. So, that's exactly my point. There were many things surfacing like that we were not able to mitigate, and certainly by the end of that meeting, there were lots of questions.
Then wouldn't it have been more appropriate for staff to step in and say, hey, wait a minute, we simply aren't ready to go on this? We simply can't do it?
I think it would have been appropriate, and this will happen again, possibly in the future.
Right, and that's my point, is that
there were 2 things that would have been appropriate when you have that many questions. You either go with your gut level feeling that this can't be fixed. We've done some studies and it's looking too hard to fix, and nobody's given this Planning Commission the fix, so I'm going to vote against it. So you can deny it, or staff should jump in and say, we need some more work on this.
I want to put one more little thing in here. There's, obviously we have different viewpoints of what the function of a planning commissioner is. But in my view, we're sort of in the middle. We're between the applicant and we're between the public. And then we have our rules that we're supposed to play by. In Nevada City, we're getting to be more like a town hall where you think you turn out the whole town and everybody's against something that should count. But in fact, our purpose here is not only to protect those people with regard to whether the sewer line gets fixed or there's adequate water and all the rest of that, but we're also here to protect the applicant from an abuse of power by the neighbors that say, we don't like it, we don't care what you do, as far as we're concerned, you can't fix this.
Well, I think you're wrong. Our responsibility is to our
responsibility.
public and the residents of Nevada City.
No, I don't believe that. I believe
I
that
know you
we
don't
are
believe
supposed
that,
to be in the middle, the fair arbiters of the ordinances.
You said that yourself, to be in the middle.
If you're the city planner and
We're
you're
not talking
accepting
about
an
the city planner.
application, I think your job is not to say, hey, Joe, I really like this project, I'm going to shoot it through, or this is a horrible project.
I didn't like that characterization, Lori.
I'm not talking about you, Paul.
It sure
Or
sounded
the
like it.
opposite would be, this is a horrible project, I'm going to do everything I can to get in its way. I think as a city planner, your job is to be in the middle.
Well,
In general, I
right,
wasn't
and-
talking about us.
Okay.
Our job is to make the hard votes, which means you're not in the middle. You vote either yes or no.
Well, but what you should be voting on is, does this fit the ordinances? Does this fit the rules? Not whether it's popular or not.
Okay, well, then that takes us into this whole subject of how the Planning Commission conducted itself. And I know it was a long meeting. I was here too. I stayed till the bitter end sitting out there, and we were tired. I think it was really good, and I think we should always do this. If there's a crowd, you vote that night. I think that's really important.
Well, the one thing...
And I think that was good, and I don't think there was anything wrong with that, because
All right.
people want you to make a decision when they've stayed up all night.
I agree, and I think
That was good.
And I want to amplify that. I think that the correct thing would have been not to discuss it, because there were items that we really did not have any information on. In fact, between the staff and the applicant, it's my understanding that they, on Monday, after the agenda packets went out, they were still revising things. Now, how are we supposed to know what kind of agreement they thought they'd all come to before it came to a meeting? Mm-hmm. And so, but being in this, in my mode as a fair arbiter, here we have an applicant that I have to assume was coming to the city in good faith and had made it known that he had a very significant deadline in order to arrange financing in this grant of $1 million, which is significant money. And, it seemed to me that we had some obligation to go ahead and try and sort through that night. And so we're sort of on the same page there, that we needed to try and get to the end of this thing so that the applicant could meet his deadline. And I think that we owe it to the applicants to deal with them expeditiously.
Well, those kinds of financial deadlines, every developer that ever comes before us, almost always they have some sort of a deadline that they like to let us know.
Well, this
about.
thing didn't come out of the blue. This
that can't
project
be
had been
our
kicking
problem.
around for a couple of years.
Well, I don't think it had been kicking around.
When I was still in office on the city council, they came to me. That's almost 3 years ago.
As long as we're on this issue of the developer coming to us, I should note that in the last week I've received a call from the developer, wanting to just asking me, what I think could be approved on the project. And consistent with the Brown Act, I think I should divulge that and let you know that what I said to him was, I don't think I should be talking to you outside of a public forum. So I don't know if anybody else has had those kind of calls. Maybe now's the time to divulge it.
Yeah, I haven't. I actually wrote a letter to the city attorney just letting him know that I had received that call. And it was a message on my machine, and I left the message back for the developer saying, I don't think it's appropriate to be discussing this with you. And if he used the words, he wanted to pitch a project to me before bringing it to the community.
On this, number one, on the staff, I think we did get tremendous input from the staff regarding the infrastructure of the city and how it could or could not service this project. And that appeared to be reason enough to deny it or continue it until some of these other problems were solved. Real physical, apparent problems of trying to service this. But those recommendations were just tossed aside. And they were tossed aside with the appearance by the public, or to the public, that they were tossed aside in order to expedite the project for whatever reason. The problems that we really faced in trying the process was the fact that we kept getting more revisions, until finally we're coming into our last hearing, and we're sitting here, and we're halfway through the discussion, and all of a sudden we realize somebody's given us a new site plan to look at that supposedly solves all the problems that we had been studying for the last several weeks. Now this, to me, is just not a way to operate. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as I'm the chairman of this commission, I will not accept plans or submittals at the table other than for clarification purposes. For instance, you can't put color and material samples in our packets. They've got to be presented, and other things about. But with actual documents that are proposals, we can't sit here and accept them right now. We have a certain deadline for preparing the items that are on the agenda, giving us an adequate and a reasonable time to make these studies and come to our conclusions. And we can't operate in that other way. And we were just thrown with our backs to the wall with these documents. And as I said at the hearing, I felt sorry for Harry because Harry was complaining because he had all this stuff in front of him. We didn't know what was going on. So I intend to follow that policy.
I will support you 100% on that, Conley. I think that this points out exactly the problem that we have, and that this stuff should not come to us, whether it's a tear down of a garage or an 80-unit apartment, until the whole package is ready. And along with that, and I'm going to make my pitch with regard to the ARC, I don't believe that Planning Commission members should be sitting on that. That should be the staff. They should have worked those things out and had all of that figured out, and then they decide whether or not they issue the mitigated negative deck or request an EIR or whatever.
Well, on the ARC issue, there were two commissioners at that. And
in fact, there were 3 meetings. They had 3 opportunities to present the fact that these things were...
Right, and I think it's a good idea to have, and I think it was a good idea then to have planning commissioners there. And of course, it's always been the case that any staff member who wants to can sit in on the ARC. In this case, it was just the 2 commissioners and Paul. But I don't think it's wrong to have the ARC members there because or the planning commissioners there, not have them there because they're not technicians or whatever, and staff ought to be doing it themselves, because this is a perfect example. We had a situation where a very weak initial environmental study was prepared. It left all kinds of questions open. I had a half an hour of questions that I put to the ARC that had not been answered in this initial environmental study. The planning commissioners sort of act as a balance, because staff had written the initial study, you folks, whoever was on the ARC, had not, and so you can sit there, not being the authors and not being married to the document. Planning commissioners can sit there and say, wow, you're right, there's still some questions here, let's work on this a little bit more. And I think it provides a good balance, because you have staff who's written the initial environmental study. It could be a combination of staff members who contributed to the initial study. By the time you get there, you're sort of married to the document, but the planning commissioners aren't married to it. The other thing has nothing to do with this particular project, but I've sat on many, 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 many ARCs over the years, and there are many times when it's the planning commissioners who got the document better, who whatever had the political will or whatever to sit there and say, I want this, 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 and this mitigation measure added. I've seen that happen many, many times, and it would not have happened if there was not a planning commissioner or 2 there. And I don't know why that is. It may just be sort of the independence of this body that we're kind of able to do that. But I've seen the planning commissioners there do a really good job. And most of the time, the only people there are Paul and the planning commissioners. So I hate to see us fired for doing a good job. For all these years, we've been, showing up at ARC meetings and doing our job. And I think we should be recognized for that and continue.
Well, we'll have a discussion on
Position.
the makeup of the ARC we've been talking about, and I'd like to have it agendized the next meeting if possible. Well, we'll have a full-blown discussion on the makeup. And on all that processing that I was talking about, we understand that the staff has been doing some rethinking and reorganization so that we've been promised or assured that the projects that come through, by the time they get to our table, they will be pretty much analyzed by staff, and all the input from staff will be in our packet, so we don't have loose ends like, well, the fire department hasn't looked at it, and blah, blah, blah.
The silver
that's
lining,
good.
the silver lining to this is that we have really done a major reorganization and have of the planning office. And in fact, I would invite the planning commissioners come up, and I can show you how things look now. And I think that would help raise your comfort level. That some of the things that happened on the AHDC application couldn't happen now. There was a certain amount of catching up. There was a lot of activity, as all of you will remember, at that time with the hotel, museum, Post Avenue GPA, and other sphere projects and so forth, and the move to City Hall. And AHDC wound its way through the system. I don't think that it had any bias on staff part. I think it's being directed towards me, and so I think I should address it since it's been put on the table. There was a preliminary application meeting by the entire staff. There was an ARC in which the entire staff was informed of, and all of the conditions that staff could come up with were included in that ARC. Now that first ARC shouldn't have happened. I absolutely agree that was something that was premature. In April, there was a lot of new mitigation that staff wanted to put into it, and the ARC meeting in April did involve myself and Vern Taylor and David Ray. Bill Falcone was out of town, and we tried to get him on a hookup, but we couldn't get him on. I worked with Vern to make sure that all of the mitigations that we had talked about would be inside that document. There was never any disagreement on staff level as to what should be in that document, what shouldn't be. What I was facing as city planner was a project that met all the zoning requirements. And I had formed well, yeah, it needed variance to steep slope, and we know about that. But it met it met the zoning. I, from the very beginning, I required studies like we've never seen in Nevada City. Noise studies, traffic studies, cultural studies, 6 of them or something, biology studies, wetland studies. We've never done that for any of our CEQA documentation here to that extent. And those documents were reviewed and sent back over and over, and reviewed by the rest of staff, and sent to Dan Landon for the traffic, and sent to the people that we do trust to work with it. Now, so there was as much information as we could generate was generated. It was the attempt was in the right place, or the intent was in the right place. The attempt fell short of getting together the kind of environmental documentation, and where when it got to the commission, it was really everything you needed to have in front of you. So there was that sense of chaos. But by anyway, that's pretty much what it was like from my side of things. Was I understood that this thing, was going to be a very difficult project from the moment I heard it was 80 units. I've lived in Nevada City for 30 years. The first time I spoke to the city council was in 1983 to suggest that they should have a general plan. And I've been very involved, and I knew what 80 units meant here, and I was involved in in Champion Trails in that situation too. So all I can say is, the staff does work together, and we've always worked together. I don't think there's been any kind of disagreement among us, and I don't think you saw any. If you did, I don't know where you saw it. There was a suspicion that there must be something going on here, but nothing was going on.
Well, I don't want to go on and on about it. I think I don't have the initial environmental study here. I think if you read it, there was a weakness to the language. There were many open questions. There were many unmitigated impacts remaining, and some of the sections, the way they were written, had a clear ring of bias towards the project. And though I know all kinds of staff members contribute to all of our initial environmental studies, it is the city planner's responsibility to determine if it's in advance of going to ARC, if it's an adequate project under CEQA. And I think we do need to err to the conservative. And you don't leave unanswered questions, and you don't leave unmitigated impacts, and you don't leave cumulative impacts out of the discussion. And if that sort of thing is happening because you don't have enough time or whatever, you just need to say it. And there's a way around that, and that is to have, the applicant fund some of these things. And that doesn't mean, again, having the applicant prepare them themselves. You just don't have the control unless you're hiring the people and giving them the parameters of the study. So I think that's something that we should consider in the future.
I have a problem. We very much would like to hear what our invited guests have to say, but Tammy needs a break. Just a couple minute breaks.
Are we going to let anybody in the
Then
audience
we'll come back.
speak,
Yes,
so they'll know if they want to stay or not?
I'd like to hear from the city attorney and the city manager, who's also part of this commission, by the way, and then hear some comments from the public. But I would like Tammy to go ahead, please. Take a 5-minute break.